There we go.
Yay.
I know it's been a long time coming.
So lovely to meet you. Finally, I've been following you for a while and handballing clients to you when it's all a bit out of my area of expertise.
Yeah,
And
same.
here we are.
Yep, same. I know.
Yeah,
And to finally get a chance to meet. And it feels like so much of what you speak about is just so like aligned, and it doesn't happen often, I must say, with sleep work. So I think
I
it's
know.
really nice to just be like
Yeah,
on the same page, because it's clearly an area where parents and families need the support. And
that's right. But they don't want to go down the mainstream sleep route. And I think you and I have such similar parenting philosophies. When my kids were little, as with your little Zev, you probably never would ever have considered getting sleep help because of your preconceptions about what it meant. And I was the same. I was like, no, no, no. And if anybody had told me I would be a sleep consultant years down the track, I would have just thought they were bonkers.
wow, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I would love to hear a little bit about your story of how you've started and what does make you different to other kind of more mainstream sleep, views.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I never set out to be a different sleep consultant or be a sleep consultant at all. It happened purely by accident. I think now looking back, so I've been a midwife for yonks, decades and decades, and I was getting a bit disillusioned with that profession. And long story short, my husband and I took the kids on a massive long trip around Australia for a year plus. And during that time, we decided we didn't want to be employees anymore. We wanted to be our own bosses. So my husband bought a business. And I thought, no, I like aspects of my job. I want to use them somehow. And I think now looking back in my mind, I was thinking about being a postpartum doula,
Yeah,
but there wasn't really a name for it in my mind at the time. It was postpartum support.
yeah.
So that's what I started to advertise as a midwife. But there wasn't much call for it back then. But
Mm.
what there was a call for was sleep support. And I thought, oh gosh, my children weren't particularly good sleepers. How am I going to help with
Yeah,
this?
true.
But I thought, right, let's troubleshoot together. And went in to do some overnight support. And then I thought, oh, wow, that wasn't too difficult. Maybe I'll just educate myself more on this. And from there, it's just evolved. And I suppose to begin with, I was a little bit more mainstream. I was never into walking away from children. That was where I was like, no, 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 I'm not closing the door, I'm not counting, I'm not doing any of that. But then over the time, I suppose with the courses that I've taken, I've started to say, yeah, there's so many different ways of supporting your children with sleep, and also embracing attachment parenting, co-sleeping, all those lovely things that I really enjoyed with my children. You can still get from A to B, but it doesn't have to be put your kid in the cot, walk away, shut the door. There's many, many, many steps you can implement to still get to the ultimate goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is usually independent sleep. That's what everybody kind of hopes and dreams for.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think it's really funny how you're saying about it's if my children couldn't do it, then how am I to tell someone else? But I think as soon as, and obviously you would know because you've got so many children. How many children do you have? Four?
Four,
Four.
yeah, twins
Unbelievable.
were the last ones, so that was a
Wow.
real, yeah,
And you see how every child is so uniquely different. And so, even though maybe with your own children, yes, there's obviously an element of what we do or don't do with them, but there's also just the temperament of the child that is
yeah,
beyond us. And
yes,
that's why I feel like those models, if we're going with like a set model, whether it's education, whether it's sleep, whether it's behavior, whatever it is, the models don't seem to work very well, or it puts a lot of pressure on parents, and then they feel like failures, and then another problem comes of that. But if
mm,
we look at patterns, there's clearly a pattern in how a human develops, then it's like a more gentle way of being able to meet those little needs that we know are likely going to pop up given their ages. But it's way more, it doesn't kind of make the child have to fit into something. Rather, we're creating something for that child. And that's why
yeah,
when
yeah.
I hear you speak online, that's very much how you speak about children and sleep and families.
Yeah, and very much like how you work, you couldn't possibly go into someone's home and go, right, I'm going to give you this plan and this is going to work for you because it worked for little Johnny down the street. It's like,
Absolutely.
right, let's look here. Let's look at the dynamics of these relationships, the dynamics of the relationships between the parents, as well as what's going on with the child. Because, yeah, you can just get so much from that, and from there you go, okay, well, let's make a plan that's doable for you, because it's no good me saying, right, do this, this and this, if you don't have the capacity to do any of it. Yeah, you've got to
Totally.
start where they're at, haven't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. And my little Zeb's been on a whopping sleep journey, mate. It's like, I think of all the things, I thought I've worked with so many children before having a baby, and so many families before having a baby. But then when you have your own, it's a different story altogether.
Totally different. I remember, because I was a midwife when I gave birth to my first, I thought, I've got this, it's totally fine.
Yeah,
By day 10 I realized that was my limit on my knowledge of babies. By
yeah,
day 10 I was usually, passing them off to the health visitor. By that point I thought, oh God, it's totally different. And also the clients you've worked with, you don't love those children, do you?
exactly, exactly. Yeah, that emotional entanglement is like another level of complexity and like all the buttons they push and all your own childhood stuff that comes up, and then maybe with grandparents around, and it's like, yeah, it's a proper, you're in like the cocoon and you're growing and it's difficult.
Yes, it's such a metamorphosis, isn't it? You becoming a mother or a father,
Yeah.
and yeah, suddenly then I think the thing I wasn't prepared for was worrying what people thought about my parenting, and then was I doing a good enough job? Did my child think I was doing a good enough job?
Yeah, that's a big one.
And wanting to please people all the time as well. So like you mentioned, if there's grandparents around,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
kind of thinking, oh, well, I know she doesn't agree with that, and maybe I'll just steer clear of that thing because, yeah,
Or
you
they
just,
just bombard you with all the, you should do this, you should do that. And then actually, that's something that comes up for me a lot in sessions where parents will say, I listened to what my mum or dad told me to do and it wasn't the right thing. And now I feel terrible that I did that. And so, if it's your only support, which is, so difficult in the way that we live now, when most of the support has to be outsourced. And so they go
mm,
to what they feel is like their best port of call, but it's not always the case. You're probably better
no,
off going to a friend or to an auntie or to pay somebody. But sometimes when it's so insular, that it's exactly that emotional entanglement. It's like one of like a knotted necklace, and you slowly have to kind of pick it apart. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And we're talking about different children as well, because our parents parented us and we're different to
exactly.
our children. So what works for one child isn't going to work for another. That, and the fact that we tend to gloss over a lot of the memories
Yeah,
of how bad things were for us. We go, oh, you were totally fine. Yeah, and it may not be accurate.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Katie, what do you feel like is the most common thing, like misconception that people have around sleep?
That children should sleep like adults, and it's just a case of teaching them to sleep like adults.
Yeah.
So, particularly when we've got newborns, a lot of people come to me saying, right, we need to get him in a routine so he's going to sleep through at the earliest possible time. And he's just like, yeah, but let's look at all the amazing things that make up a newborn and how they manage to keep themselves safe and nourished and fed and oxygenated and all those marvelous things during the nighttime, because it's the most risky time. It's the time that parents are not on guard, they're not watching them. So naturally, they're going to want to wake up,
Yeah.
check in, reoxygenate, um, raise their blood sugars and feed, and all of that
Yeah.
great stuff that is going to sustain them during that time that we are not 100% on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you can explain it like that, people go, oh, okay, so this isn't me doing something wrong. This is just what nature intended at this moment.
Absolutely.
That's not to say that if we get a baby that sleeps through from day one, we're going to send it back, obviously.
Yeah.
That's great. If they choose to do it, that's totally different story,
Yeah.
assuming they're well and not jaundiced and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, on the whole, little ones are not going to be independent
No.
for many years. There's ways that we can get them feeling more confident about the falling asleep process and help them to know that it's not a massive goodbye. Like a lot of children see it as a massive goodbye, don't they, for the night?
Yeah, that's what I share as well. The biggest separation in the day.
Yeah, and it's the end of fun, and yeah, a lot of children don't want that to be the end. So very often, I guess another misconception is that babies or children should just get into bed, lie down, close their eyes, and go to sleep,
Yeah.
which is what we do. You know, I don't know about you, but I get into bed, I make a physical noise, I go, ugh,
Yeah.
like, isn't that lovely? Kids are not going to do that. They're
Yeah.
just not going to do it. And as with everything else about children, it's all done with play. So
Yeah.
it's okay for kids to get into bed and have their toys there and they're talking between them and they're doing or singing songs or, lying there with their feet up against the wall. That's okay. Don't shut that down. It's all just a process of winding into sleep. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it looks different, doesn't it? Sleep looks different to us.
Yeah, yeah. In all their younger years and then in between each child, it's just totally different. And how busy they are and what kind of inputs they need and what they've done at school, what they haven't done, or if they've moved about. Totally.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't sleep like adults, and that's okay. But they will eventually.
Yeah, yeah. And Zev's 5.5 now, and I'm only really now noticing a maturity in his sleep, like real maturity where his body really wants to sleep. There's no like restlessness. Well, if we kind of do what we know he needs throughout the day, and like he wants the sleep, he enjoys the sleep. It's not like I don't want to, and no, he's really happy to go to sleep. Um,
Yeah.
it
You've
just
got the timing right. I think that's the other thing. A lot of people go, oh, well, 7 o'clock is the ideal bedtime for a child. Well, it might be for some, but not for others. And if you're trying to put them to bed an hour before their body and their brain is ready, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have upset. You're going to have all the excuses under the sun.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's so
Mm,
interesting.
yes.
Gosh, it's such a big missing piece for so many families that, like, I know one time I consulted this family, very, very intelligent, wealthy, very well supported, just amazing, young, enthusiastic people. And the dad consulted with me one on one alone. And he said to me, the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life is try and put my 3-year-old daughter to sleep. It just rubs him up the wrong way. Like he's like the irritation, the frustration that I feel, the way that I feel like a failure, the way that she just does not respond to what he's trying to do with her is hands down the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. Sent him into anxiety, depression. Yeah, massive, massive.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, actually, I think I sent this client to you. I'm thinking of a 3-year-old boy whose daddy said to me that he didn't want to come home at the end of the day.
Yeah,
He'd get in the car and he'd be like, oh,
yeah,
I've got to go home and put my son to bed now.
yeah,
To the point that he'd just stopped trying. He would just come home and go outside to the man cave and let his wife deal with it because he felt so useless
yeah.
and
Defeated. Yeah,
unwanted. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that's really hard for so many parents. And that intense period of life, how many I don't know if you're noticing this, but at the moment I've got a huge wave of families that are separating. They just can't work through it.
Mm,
It just tears them apart. And you think it's just little people, and it's usually because of a misunderstanding or you've got a little gap in your knowledge. And if you were just reinforced with a little bit of information and felt empowered by that, then you could put your mind at ease. It wouldn't feel
mm,
like you're a failure. It's just so much about like that season that you're in. And the social media thing is so tricky. Like on one hand,
mm,
we get amazing information, we can connect with people. On the other hand, it's just little squares that portrays a snippet of a moment and people think their life is perfect and our life feels like rubbish, and so
mm.
something must be wrong, and it's just so not accurate. Oh
No,
goodness.
that's right. My husband and I were talking on our doggy walk this morning about how when you have I think I was saying something about, my biggest obstacle to making a difference is when couples are not on the same page.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they come to me with what they imagine is a sleep issue, and I kind of see it as, well, this is normal infant sleep, but what's the challenge is you two being cohesive in how you're dealing with it. And he said, yeah, it really, really highlights the cracks in a relationship. When you go and have a baby, the things that maybe you brushed over previously, it just brings out the worst in you. And you've got to be so forgiving, haven't you? Go, oh, he's tired.
Yeah.
Not take it personally. And I think a lot of families do take it personally. And yeah, that's my biggest obstacle, is getting past all the ego of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
acknowledging that it's real.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like what it brings up for them. And sometimes that feels a bit too tricky,
Mm.
that it feels like a too hard basket or too painful. Yeah. And I think it's only really on one hand, especially those people that aren't quite aware of what really is shifting, that it feels like a fad. It's like, oh, looking at your own stuff, or it's just passing. It's not the actual support that most people need in order to step into uncomfortable situations, or to be able to speak openly with each other in the couple. Yeah, that's a whole other area of support that needs to be done.
How do you deal with that because you must see that a lot, like
Awesome.
conflict between the parents and the kids
Yeah,
just act out madly?
yeah, yeah. I usually suggest to families that, because it'll often be the mum who's probably been on social media or read something, or in a mother's group, someone suggested a course or a talk, and a whole light bulb moment has happened. And then they try and get the dads on board, and the dads are like, they just can't. They're not really willing. They don't get it. They feel like it's their role to really be the kind of firm authoritarian. They need to be very clear. They're worried that it's too wishy-washy. And so they often, even it like pushes them to go more the other way, because they feel that now something that the mother is doing is going to cause an issue for the family.
Mm.
So I usually say to the mothers, because that's who I'll often speak to first, that it's not about trying to prove your point. Like, I feel like in any area, if we try and we come across as very desperate in trying to prove our point, it often has the opposite effect. But if you just do what now you see to be a more comfortable, more appropriate way to speak or communicate, you just be the model of that. And when it comes to the partner, focus rather on the relationship. Because, when you're invested in a relationship at the beginning, you listen
Mm.
to whatever they say to you.
Oh God, yeah, hang on every word.
Every single word. And even like when I got together with Deschel, and he said to me, yes, he's American and calls it a whooping. My heart, because I was doing this work before I met him, so my heart almost dropped. And I kind of had an inkling, like, this is the man. I'm going to be with this person. And here he is telling me, absolutely, I was whooped. I'm going to whoop my children. It's a brilliant way, and
Oh
nothing's
my
wrong
word.
with me. Yeah.
How did you even get married?
Well, it was like I couldn't prove to him otherwise, but I started to ask a few questions of like, what do you think you learned from that? Or what do you think the reason was why you did that? Or what do you think came of you being, locked in your room for this period of time? And he was
Mm.
like, basically could see it himself very clearly. It wasn't effective at all. And then, but at the beginning, because if I didn't really want to be in that relationship and make it work, that would have been enough to be like, right, that's it. There's absolutely no way I'm dealing with this person. But because I was so invested, I was able to stay there and focus on the communication really well. And eventually he was doing the same to me. He really wanted to hear me out. So I feel like when we're often at a point where maybe you're at like a critical point where maybe you're very exhausted, life is too busy, maybe there's financial stress, the children are maybe a toddlers or going through some kind of regression, and we're all at this point where we're like about to crack, rather than now saying, right, this is the new thing we're doing in the family and we've done it wrong, which is not going to work. Just foster the relationship. Go back to, because you're all exhausted. It's been difficult for everybody. Focus on the relationship. And if you found a good supportive way for you, then go ahead. You do what you need to do. And eventually the relationship becomes really deeply connected again, and they're more open to hearing what it is that you have to say, or reading whatever you send them, or picking up, listening to the same audiobook as you. But it very much is to do more with the relationship than anything else. And again, just your modeling of those tools that you pick up along the way, and it's clear as day to see when something's working effectively. And I'll often hear it, they'll say like, I had no idea that would work, or like, yeah, I was totally surprised that that was even going to affect us in any kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you must see it all the time.
Yeah, I love it though. It's so beautiful, because it's probably one of those things where you're like, if they didn't get to this point, maybe that would have been the end of it. That would have been the end of the relationship. And really, also the other one that comes up with the couples is, especially when the babies are younger, where the one parent resents the other parent for being more free and able to go and do what they need to do to fill that capacity. And rather just let us both stay home, and now we both need to be miserable and both need to be sleep deprived, because if I'm doing this, then you have to do this. And it just doesn't work.
No. So little things that I'll suggest when, partners often feel like they've got to be awake when their partner's awake, particularly in the early stages when they've got a newborn. It's like, right, we'll both be up and I'll do the nappy and you do the feed and blah, blah, blah. And I go, no. Don't even take it in turns. Like, you do a shift and you do a shift.
Yeah.
Don't be in it. It's pointless you both being exhausted. Someone's got to be there to take up the slack when the other person's had enough. And if you're both in it all the time together, you never can have that. Yeah. So,
it's just so out of balance.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just talking about the easy things as well that parents can do that don't involve modifying the child's sleep at all. It's just learning how to deal with the sleep the way it is now. So,
yeah, totally. Yeah. Katie, where are you based again? Are you on the peninsula?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
So
travel
good.
up to Melbourne, come up to the Big Smoke. Yes, I've got lots of clients near you, actually.
Yeah.
It just gets tricky at peak hour if I've got to visit up there. It's like, oh gosh, how many hours am I going to be in traffic for? You would know all about that.
Yeah. That's huge. And then, so the majority of your work would be in person, in home?
No, actually, most of it is online. But usually once or twice a week I'm at somebody's house as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I volunteer as well once a week. I don't know if you've seen me post about the Seaford drop-in and Rye once a month. So people come and see us there just for tips and, I don't know, just to suss us out maybe.
Yeah, how's that going?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, it can be madly busy, or yesterday was just nice. We had three families come through, so it was a bit steadier. Yeah, it's just nice to be able to offer support to people that maybe can't afford it, or people who are just on the fence with whether they want sleep support or not, like I would have been 16 years ago. I would have totally been there sussing me out, going, your advice, like, what's your stance? But we do feeding support and a bit of mental health stuff as well if needed.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's how we just get out in the community, and it's great for me as well just to hang out with other midwives and feel like I've got colleagues still, because it can be quite a lonely thing. Do you find that?
Yeah.
So it's as much for me as for the mummies and me and my
beautiful.
colleagues. Yeah,
that's
how do you get that support working as a one-on-one?
I know it's tricky. I mean, I do my own kind of therapies and that, so that there's always very intense stuff that comes up, so I definitely need to offload onto somebody. But in terms of like colleagues and connecting with people, there's been a few people online, which has been so nice, and we've just kind of like how you and I are in touch and stayed in touch. And Danny Willow, who now has moved out, that's not near you. Is the Peninsula and Geelong the same area? No, opposite side of the bay. Okay, so she's gone that way, There's a beautiful school out there that has opened. So she moved to take her girls to the school, and but we still do a lot of stuff together online because she used to just live on the same street as me, and we didn't even realize we connected on Instagram.
Really?
And then we were on
Ah,
the same street.
and then she moved.
I
That's no
know how.
good.
Yeah.
Because it's nice sometimes to discuss
Mhm.
cases, isn't it? With full confidentiality, obviously,
Yeah.
but just to go, oh, I've got this situation. What do you think? Did I do the right thing? Is there something else you would bring to that?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's
that can be
very,
key.
very necessary. And like it's nice, like obviously your perspective is slightly different. What Danny does is a little bit different. She's more aware parenting. I don't have a background
Mm,
in aware parenting, although again, it's very aligned to what I do.
mm,
I've got more Montessori or psych stuff. And so we
yeah.
kind of like, oh, what's, kind of like with the families, like Danny never sees dads, but I consult a lot of dads. So she
Mm,
was like, oh, somebody's asking here, or what is it? Yeah, it's fantastic.
mm.
We need that support.
Yeah, and we can learn from each other, can't we?
Yes.
That's the
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
especially if they're slightly different but aligned um, points of view,
Yes.
just or different specialities. And that's why I work so well with my colleague Louise, who's a community midwife and in lactation. And yeah, so often feeding and sleep goes hand in hand. So
Yeah,
that
wow.
works well.
Do you still do any kind of midwife work or support, or do you pass them on? Yeah, okay.
No, no, I left that behind a few years ago now. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it was difficult because I'd done that since I was 18, like
Oh,
fresh out of uni, and I'm like straight into life, real life
yeah.
in as a midwife. And yeah, then I was, oh gosh, 40, oh, I don't know, when I when I stopped. And it was like I was waiting for permission for someone to go, off you go, Katie, you can do this. But of course, that never came. And I was constantly looking over my shoulder going, am I allowed to do this? Am
Yeah,
I allowed to
yeah,
do this job? Like someone's going to come and tell me, stop that right now. You never got
yes,
permission.
yeah. Well,
When you're
yeah,
part of an institution,
that's
yeah.
right. That's exactly right. I feel like there's many women or even men, like even with Deschel, he's got so many things that he could just do on his own. And we do. It's something to do a little bit with our programming in school and stuff, that
Mm,
freedom. We came from WA, and in WA it is a no-no. Like small businesses is not a thing. Nobody has
really?
trust in them, nothing. You can't charge a good price. Very suspicious as a culture. Like they just go
Mm,
for big corporations and that's the end of it. And
really?
yeah, and even as like the young people, all they want to do is like get a land package, make babies, get married very young, get a permanent job somewhere, and it's like very straightforward. So I mean, generally,
Yeah.
I'm speaking generally, but so I finished my study in the UK, and when I came here,
Did
when
you?
I left Perth, was in the UK for a bit, and then I was like saying to my mum, "There's no way I can't go back to Perth. I don't think I could do it." And that's how we came here, especially when I thought I want to start working for myself.
Mm.
Here, there's just the whole place is built on these little businesses.
Yeah, we're all quite enterprising here in Melbs, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, the general public, they love the nichey uniqueness. It's given more value than the bigger stuff. I mean, I'm speaking generally again, but
Mm,
I noticed that, yeah, when it starts to pick up that word of mouth, like I don't have that big a presence online, but word of
mm,
mouth, I'm in the school, people know me here at Melbourne Montessori or in the Jewish community,
yeah.
alternative education. So once you start to pick up a little bit of word of mouth in
Mm.
Melbourne, it's way better than
The
Perth.
Jewish community is amazing. I've got so many clients in
Yeah,
the Jewish community.
yeah,
It's like, I feel like when I see pictures of them all on Facebook at the
yeah,
park together, I'm like,
yeah.
why wasn't I invited? I know of you.
You support all of them, and
I
they like if they like someone, if you are a good service, everyone will come to you.
Everyone will know. And it's kind of
Everyone.
embarrassing, really. I go, oh, has she passed my details on to you as well? Sorry,
Yeah.
like she's a bit of a groupie. But no, it's lovely. And I always say, like, Jewish families just they make the best parents. I think you've just got such um, lovely approach to parenting, just
Yeah,
gentle,
very
soft,
warm.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and very open as well to learning. what they need to learn. If there's a bit that's just not making sense, very, very open.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so much support as well. There's
Yes.
so much wider support that I wish other communities had available to them.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. It makes a world of difference. And also, like, yeah, it's just very community based, very warm. Everyone wants to stay close together. They're always after like a good quality of something. And if somebody gives you a good result, everyone will know about it. Everyone will want to contact you.
Yeah, so no, I don't apart from just doing my own thing on socials, I don't advertise in any groups or anything like, oh, I just hate being salesy. So yeah, I just stick to my own and
No, that's
comment. I'll comment on a few things in other Facebook groups, but yeah, you don't see my ads splashed around too much.
yeah, it's
You
very
don't need to, do you, if it's word of mouth?
That's exactly right. And I feel like that's way more, you might get more interaction online with advertising, but like in terms of like the top quality, I don't know what you call them, ideal customers, it's always going to come from word of mouth. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like I know with people that you've sent to me, the comfort that they feel, they don't ask me the same questions of like who I am, what I come from, what I'm, they're just like, oh, Katie said to contact you. And I'm like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to it.
That's right. Just knowing that you're aligned and
Yes.
you can pass on to somebody else who you feel safe. Yeah. I know we think alike, even
Yeah.
though this is the first time we have ever spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watch all your videos and go, yeah, good
Yeah.
point. Like that one this morning I saw. How to talk to you. Yeah. Oh, what was it about how children feel in the moment? I thought, right, I'm going to say that to Tommy now because this morning he's going to be like, I don't want to go to school, Mum. He has never said that in the whole of his however many years he's been at primary school. But suddenly he's just like, yeah, it's a small pond now at 12 years old. Primary school's just a bit, we're doing the same thing all the time. It's so boring. I'm like, hang in there. You get to go to big school soon. But yeah, and he didn't say it this morning. It was book swap day, so I sent him off with a pile of books and he was happy.
Oh, that's good. The
But I
other
will
thing
keep
that
it.
you can do when I feel like that, I mean, I find that 6-year-old children often get to the same point because they start to come fully out of toddlerhood and they very much feel like big kids. And on one hand, it's super daunting. On the other hand, they just like want to get to it. But if you ramp up responsibility, risky play, like big things that are really a bit dangerous, that is really more an adult's thing, and you give that to them, it satisfies that. They don't feel like I shouldn't be here. I'm more aligned to this older group, and now I don't want to hang out with these babies. Like I feel like I'm over that. So he might like it if I don't know if you're lighting fires at home or if you need lifting.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. Yep, we'll be lighting a fire later.
Yeah.
What else could I get him doing?
Yeah, I mean things that maybe you wouldn't think are very safe for him, that you might be like, no, that's not a good idea. Or like, even if I just spoke with someone yesterday and her parents live a few houses down and the daughter's 5 and she knows how to get to the grandparents' house and the mother's never let her walk alone. But I'm like, I really think she needs you to trust her. And so I asked the mum to write a letter to the grandmother. And when she receives it, to text the mum, and that the mum would text back and then write a message for the girl, and the girl would have to bring it back to her mum. So she's being a bit of a messenger and being entrusted to walk the 4 houses alone. Yeah. So something that, it is absolutely a little bit dangerous to walk out on the street, but it's a straight line. We can see her. So something I think is really like,
so something else that marks the age that he's at, that he's responsible, and I trust him to do it.
Yeah.
To bridge, to satisfy that in him at the moment ahead of going to school. Love it.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll do it.
Yeah, it could even be something like rolling the car forward or...
Oh, no, he did. That's so funny because my eldest daughter's learning to drive. So my husband put him behind the wheel in the car park the other day.
Yeah.
He was so full of himself. So
Okay,
there we
that's
go.
great. Yeah, so that's a good one. Yeah, like you could just say,
Yeah.
like, I saw you do that. You were actually brilliant at it. Do you mind just
Yeah.
rolling a little bit forward? It's not quite where I need it to be. He'll just think like, yes, finally, they understand. I am an adult.
I'll make sure it's not pointing at the house when we do that. Oh, great tips.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to shoot off, I'm
Yeah.
afraid, because like I said, my call appointments are tight this morning. 12
I'm
o'clock is my next one.
so
But it's
grateful that we got to have a proper chat. And so that it
yes,
feels like I really know you, because it kind of already did. But then when they were
yep.
like, oh, so when you met Katie, who asked me that? Somebody who lives in your area.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
Siobhan, maybe? Siobhan?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
with
And
PJ.
yes. And then I was like,
Yes.
actually, I haven't met her. She was like, really?
No, we don't know each other. We just know
Yeah.
what each other looks like and sounds like because we've seen each other so much. But
Yeah. So now I can say, yes, I've virtually met her and had a
yes.
real person conversation.
Yes. Well, maybe we'll meet in actual real life one
Oh,
day
that
and
would be amazing.
get a
I mean, if
coffee or
you're in
something.
the area, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, next time I'm down there during a day visit, I'm sure you don't want me popping over in the middle of the night. Um,
Well, if you need to, you absolutely can.
I'll hold you to that then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Katie. Have a beautiful day.
you too. It's been so nice chatting to you.
So nice. All right. We'll be in touch, I'm sure.